Well guys, here we are again. Visual Basic, Tutorial 3, Input and Output. In this unit, I'll be covering, well, you guessed it, input and output. So let's jump right in with what is input and output. Well, if we're looking at the textbook definition, input is something that is put in, or the act or process of putting in, while output is the act of turning out or producing. Definitions found on dictionary.com. I'm in no way affiliated with dictionary.com or its partners. These definitions are copyright dictionary.com 2011. All rights reserved. In VB terms, input is data or information your program needs to do its job, while output is displaying the results of your program on screen. Data can be inputted or outputted in multiple ways, but we'll use a text box as an example. Here's a general code format if we were going to gather input from a text box. Variable name equals text box name dot text. The variable would be set to whatever happens to be in the text box when the event occurs, being a click, a mouse down, scroll over, or whatever you have it set to. So let's do output, which on the other hand would display results in the text box. If we were creating output code for a text box, the format would be reversed. It would look like text box name dot text equals variable name. And this time, the text box would display what is stored in the variable and would appear on our GUI. So, let's see what this looks like when we write a small program. Here I've already set up the GUI to spare some time, so let's jump right into the code. We'll start out like all good coders by commenting. Then we'll declare a variable that will store our data. Dim, and I'll name this variable IO for input output as string. Next, we'll write out our input code, keeping in mind our code format, which is variable name equals text box name dot text. So this would make our code look like IO equals txti dot text being my input text box. Lastly, we'll create our output code, which, if we remember correctly, looks like text box name dot text equals variable name. With this being said, our output code would look like txto dot text equals IO. Now let's go ahead and start debugging. Actually, before we start debugging, why don't we go ahead and get rid of the comments we made up here, just to get rid of some clutter. Alright, now we'll head into our debugger. And as we can see, when we type in the input text box, click the IO button, our text we typed in the input text box is being stored in our variable through our input code, and then our output code is copying the data from our variable and storing that data in our output text box. So before I wrap this video up, I'd like to show you some extra features while you're creating a form. To promote a more user-friendly environment, the tab stop and tab index properties should be utilized. The tab index will always start with the lowest number, and when the tab key is pressed, the object with the next highest number on the index will be focused on. So I'll start by changing the tab index on the input text box to 0, followed by changing the tab index on the IO button to 1, and then I will stop the input text box and the exit button from being able to be selected when tapped. So let's see how the program runs now. A user can easily type, and when finished, press Tab and Enter to select the I/O command button. For this program, however, there is an even more user-friendly property on the form called the Accept button. When you set a command button as the Accept button and you press Enter on your keyboard, this button will automatically be hit. You can easily go back to the input text box by pressing Tab again. So, I'll show you what that looks like in the debugger. Now, when we type our input code, all we have to do is press Enter, and voila, good to go on our output side. There's no need to press Tab at all, making this program super user friendly. More to come later on why my program officially thinks I'm stupid. So let's review. Input is data or information your program needs to do its job, and the general format for input code is variable name equals textbox name.text. Output is displaying the results of your program on screen. The general format for output code is textbox name.text equals variable name. Some important side concepts are all good coders comment their code. User friendliness is important, and the best properties to start with are tab index, tab stop, and the accept button. Keep in mind, frequent saving will prevent disasters. No one wants to lose their code, especially when they've been working on it for hours. Final thoughts. Post a comment, send a message, whatever your preferred method of communication would be. Want more VB.net videos? Go ahead and subscribe. Yours truly, Acasha72.